How do we scale this model? What systemic changes are required to make this happen? What impact will this initiative have on the Indian economy? To discuss this and more, we now have a panel discussion on hiring 2.0 in a digital world. Let's listen to some of the sharpest minds in academia, industry, and policy as they explore this shift. Please welcome Professor Kannan Modgalya, the inventor of Spoken Tutorial, Mr. Gaurav Gupta, Chief Growth Officer, Xstep Foundation, Mr. Ashank Desai, Principal Founder and Chairman, Mastec, Professor Tara S. Shah, Professor, Department of Economics, IIT Bombay. This session will be moderated by Mr. Anil Sasi, National Business Editor, The Indian Express.
Good morning. A day of possibilities is how we started off. And after listening to the two professors, in fact, the three professors, Modgalya sir, Professor Sahasrabudhe, and Professor Sitaram, it does seem that it's possible. And from my perspective, I would want to start with what I've seen firsthand. And, it's a series of stories that we've done on the PM internship scheme at the place where I work, the Indian Express newspaper. And the big constraint there that we'd seen was the fact that despite this particular project had the push from the top, the Prime Minister's office was involved in it. The person pushing it at the bureaucratic level is the man who is now the Cabinet Secretary of India, the topmost bureaucratic position. Despite all of that, they've struggled to make headway. And the one reason that's been they've sort of figured out is because they've been struggling to make a match. There are kids who want to do the internship. There are companies that are willing to give an opportunity. The government is willing to pay a bulk of the money that should be paid to each candidate. But there's a struggle to get it going because of the exact problem that we are discussing here. They're not able to match the interns with the companies. The interns who want to do the internship in a particular stream, match them to the companies that are willing to offer the internship, and the other way around. The companies that are willing to offer, or have slots for internships, but they're not able to identify the pool of candidates. And to that extent, it is so it's so evocative of this problem that we now have on the job side, and that really is the challenge. Some of the figures that we were, when we were talking to Mr. Gupta earlier during the day, the kind of struggle that it is, especially in the case of smaller companies, the MSMEs, the lack of formalization of the economy keeps most of these opportunities hidden. They're not visible to the candidates who could have applied for them. The MSMEs don't have the wherewithal to reach out to them. And that match really is instrumental, because even though the scale of the MSMEs might be small individually, but collectively they are the ones that power industry. They're the ones who are responsible perhaps for the demand problem that we are seeing at this point in time. The larger companies have done well, especially post-COVID. But the smaller companies have struggled. And we talk of this manpower shortage, but is it really a manpower shortage, or is it a problem of, getting the right skill sets to the places that want it? And I don't have to rub in the significance of it in a room full of teachers and educational leaders. To delve into this deeply, we have a really good panel. There's Mr. Gupta, Gaurav Gupta. He's the CXO of Xstep. He's Xstep Foundation. He's also, he's also part of the team that's the Honest team that's sort of set this rolling, a sort of an open source network for, doing exactly the kind of, challenge that we're talking of. We've got Mr. Ashank Desai. He's played a key role in sort of founding NASSCOM. He was one of the chairpersons of this IT industry body. He's founder and chairperson of Mastic. We've got Professor Tara S. Shaw, Department of Economics, IIT Bombay. He's done extensive work on manufacturing activities, inequality in India, on CSR spends by companies, etc. So he comes in with the academic, perspective. And then of course we have Professor Kannan. He needs no introduction. The driving force behind Spoken Tutorial. As I'm finding out in my Bombay visits, an excellent dosa party host. So maybe I'll start off with Professor Kannan. So you worked extensively on improving access to learning. So when it comes to access to jobs and hiring, well, it in some ways it's perhaps an extrapolation of the sort of work that you've done. But are there lessons that can be used, that can perhaps be extrapolated, and how challenging is this in a non-metro setting, in courses that are not perhaps mainstream? What are the similarities? What are the learnings, and how do you go forward on this?
Yeah, it's a good question. Thanks. One of the problems that we have is we are giving, possibly because of the numbers, for every job, some 100 students will be interested in applying. So what is the standard method? To say that I'm going to talk to top 10 students, okay? Because, or highest scorer, okay? That highest scorer may not necessarily be motivated, confident, but knows how to get marks, okay? And that seems to be the easy solution to address this problem of numbers. We have large numbers, lot of jobs, lot of people to be placed. So what is the solution? Numbers. So for example, we have IIT, for example, IITs, okay? We have a lot of students interested. We have a few seats. What do? Exam, and I'm going to take top 1%. I don't care about what happens to the rest, right? That method is perhaps okay. I mean, it seems to have worked in IIT in the sense that IITs have done well, although other institutions have not done well. But for jobs, it's a problem, because especially when you talk about MSMEs, I also mentioned about MSMEs previously. They need a lot of jobs, and they don't necessarily need people. They don't need rocket scientists. They don't need Nobel laureates, okay? They need people who can deliver things, who can work and so on. So going by mark alone is, I don't know whether it is very good. Aptitude, identifying aptitude, is this person going to be interested in whatever this company has? Will that person stick around for a while? Will they deliver? That seems to be a lot more important. And I mean, obviously, you need people who know things. You don't need people who are scoring 99%. I mean, somebody who scores 80% is okay. I mean, they will, pick up. In any case, right now what happens, there is a inflation of marks all around. Yet, that means people are scoring 100 marks, 99% and so on. When they go to IT companies, they say, no, we have to train you for 6 months. What did they do in the colleges? Why the companies have to train them again? Why is this training required again and again? So one of the things that we did in all our internship, all our fellowship, was to check whether this person knows what I want, we would always give a screening task and say, people who do well, I don't care about your color, I don't care about your gender, I don't care about what college you are from, how many marks you have scored. I have a screening task. If you finish it, I will consider you. I don't care about marks. Okay? But obviously for academic institutions, it's a different thing. But it may be a little difficult. But jobs, certainly, I have heard people saying that had I followed the regular routine, this fellow would have taken 45 days to find out what he is going to do. But here, in the new method, this person is contributing from day one. Can we do that for our small IT companies? And I believe it is possible.
The pilot that you mentioned, the pilot that you talked about a little bit, how important is it for candidates, say from the hinterland, to not having to write the CVs, not having to do, present themselves initially in a slightly tough environment where they're being judged in a place that they're not perhaps familiar with? How does this process sort of change it, or what's been the limited learning?
Okay, so first of all, they have to learn to write CVs. That is required for everybody, and in fact, we have created a tutorial spoken tutorial that explains how to write CVs. But CV is not the only thing, because I have had experience. I mean, in fact, we were trying to recruit some people. They were very good in in the technicals. They scored almost 100, but aptitude they scored very little. So, and they were a manager in Hyderabad, handling some 10 people. Obviously, they were doing well. Then our team concluded that although they were capable, they were not really serious. That's why they had done badly in aptitude. Later on, I said, look, I have a doubt. I talked to them, and then I found out that this person was not at all fluent in English. In fact, very bad. And as far as that IT company was concerned, he would never meet the customer. Somebody would tell him this is what to be delivered, and he would deliver. Okay? So we have a large number of such people, and they need to be helped. One of the things we did, in fact, Professor Sasrabu, they pointed out about automatic translation and so on. This AI engine, it has, of course, some way to go. But in fact, we had that recording where the bot spoke Tamil, and there was a response also was in Tamil. Okay. In fact, it was difficult to find out which was the bot and which was the thing. But still, there is some way to go. It'll be. This is especially important for, let's say, the northern India, where you need Hindi, right? And where English fluency is not so high. And these people are smart, and people are talking about, how Biharis are doing extremely well, extremely smart, but they have a problem with English, for example, right? So we need a way to talk to them, understand, and this the machine can do. And in fact, the pilot involved bot doing the first level filtering and then physical thing that maybe Gaurav will talk about. But there is a role for it, and it has to be addressed. In fact, I was just telling yesterday that when I was a student at IIT Madras, BTech, I didn't know the meaning of the word mandatory. Okay? Because I never came across. I never studied because I studied in Tamil medium, right? I had an opportunity. Professor Sasrabu was telling, we were lucky. We were in the right set of things, and so we could come up in spite of our difficulties. But most children, unfortunately, don't have that luxury, and they are not any less than anybody else. They can. And we talk about Viksit Bharat, developed country and all that. The top 10% cannot make a developed country. We need to take everybody with us. And we cannot do that if we don't go to rural, remote areas and talk to people who are not fluent in English and accommodate them.
Mr. Gupta, the whole idea of an open network for jobs, UPI-like protocols, converting, you know, say qualifications into signals, matching them with what, you know, what the companies require. If that was the original idea, maybe something like an ONDC, how is that project going now? What are the tweaks that you've made between the time that you started out and now?
So see, I'll probably start with some context also around this in terms of the approach behind it. See, of course, Professor has been talking about MSMEs. Why are they important? MSMEs are the job creation engine of India. Almost 2/3 of the jobs in the country, they are provided by MSMEs. And in fact, you know, even as somebody starts out as an entrepreneur, they are a MSME at the start, right? They don't become a big entrepreneur straight away. So that's the significance. Likewise, when you look at the candidates, 4.5 crore people are in higher education. Almost 80% of them do not really have a digital profile. They don't really have resumes. You know, Professor also spoke about the importance of telling people about how to write CVs, etc. In that context. So now the moot point that this creates is, in fact, another, you know, just data point in this context, that if you look at where are these jobs sitting today, you'll actually find them on posters, on trees, poles, outside gates, outside the factory, and so on and so forth. You know, walk around, and that is still the case. In a country where, you know, when it comes to digitalization, when it comes to making financial payments, you will find in every nook and corner of the country, people are, you know, using UPI to transfer money. But when it comes to jobs, they're still sitting as posters on trees and poles. Likewise, candidates on the other side, not being able to broadcast their want. There's no digital signal, right? So when you spoke about that, the signal, the missing digital signal is what is leading to invisibility in this context, be it on the candidate side or also on the job provider side. And unless on either side there is a digital signal that one can broadcast, which can be emitted, you know, you cannot really find each other. But now you spoke about what is the learning, what has been the, you know, journey in this context. So see, when we started, it was just about assuming that, you know, if one were to broadcast a signal, and if things become and that signal can be exchanged through a protocol, we thought it's as simple as that as an idea. But soon, you know, the realization also came through that even digitalization of broadcasting the signal has to happen by working with different partners in every nooks and corners of the country. It cannot happen with, you know, one platform, one portal trying to do it, because not everyone is on that platform or that portal. That digitalization as a drive has to be taken, you know, across the country. Secondly, even when you broadcast that signal, how do you trust that signal? Right? Because today, in fact, we live in a world today where nobody reads resumes. Right? Probably AI agents are, you know, reading resumes, or we actually came across with examples where if at all there are resumes, there's like a huge stack of resumes that you will find with most employers. But they don't have the time to go through that, read that. MSMEs, they don't really have hiring managers who can go through all of that, right? That guy is an entrepreneur trying to, you know, make things happen in a jiffy, and they don't have the time to go through all of those resumes and so on and so forth. So when you're talking about digital signal, how can you trust that signal? Can that signal come with credentials which can also be digitally verified? Now, in this context, a college, when it puts a credential which can be digitally verified, that makes it easy for a job provider on the other side to actually cache that signal, and in that context, even verify that signal. Saying that, you know, okay, this is a bona fide candidate, these are their wants, and I can now proceed and progress further in that context. And vice versa, right? There are so many fake scams or schemes that happen in the country today where you receive an SMS saying, you know, apply to this and this job, you click the button, money gone. You know, so much of it is happening in the country. Now, how do you trust that signal even if somebody is creating that signal? So I think the evolution in this context has been that one, How do you get everyone to emit a signal? What should that signal be? And I often say, Professor was making that point earlier, that signal also always has to be seen from the perspective of the receiving party, right? So an employer only wants to see these 5 fields of information, not the whole thing. A job seeker only needs to know these 5 aspects about the role or the company, not anything and everything. Who reads JDs these days? In fact, HRs also struggle with writing JDs, right? The job descriptions. So the signal, how that gets emitted, how to ensure and bring trust in that signal, and how that signal can be exchanged in a fashion where the protocol becomes useful. That has been the journey. To this, let me also add that India being India, and a large part of India lives in Bharat, like we call it, right? They're not going to be able to transact if the language is English or even Hindi, for that matter, right? You need to be able to do that in multiple different languages. So how do you now use AI to create an advantage in that context, so that one can do it through voice in local language, and hence the signal can be generated by many people in an inclusive fashion? So those have been some of the learnings along the way that have become a part of it, versus the original idea of only thinking, let's try to do a protocol kind of a thing and that will take care of everything, to in a way a stack, if you will, which is emerging in the context of hiring, which has signal, trust, exchange through a protocol, and the use of AI to make it do it in a local language and in a multimodal fashion. So that has been the evolution in this context. Right. Sorry, a long answer, but I think it needed that context.
No, good. And I'll come back to you for more, but just again for a zoomed out, maybe academic take on it, Professor Shaw. The experience of say a country like Germany with its Mittelstand, it's really formidable MSME culture, but also married to the fact that they have that dual vocational degree option, the fact that kids can make an early choice, unions are part of the whole construct. Now there is an almost societal kind of an involvement in the way it's worked. It's perhaps worked well in Japan, where the Keidanren, the local industry body, is really into it. What from your sort of academic vantage point, how do you see the things that need to perhaps change in India for this to work?
Yeah, the question is interesting, but I will put from the perspective of the MSME in India, which has been discussed a lot. MSME, the policy of MSME that was created in India has itself been a constraint in the growth of MSME. Yeah. So, for example, if you look at Economic Survey, it is a government document of 2018, they identified something known as dwarf MSMEs, which are the concept where that they are small in numbers, the employment is less than 100, but they continue to be MSME sector for more than 10 years. That means that they have not grown. The idea is that it is not that they are not growing organically. They deliberately do not want to grow because they want to be within the ambit of not going to the regulatory bottlenecks of Industrial Dispute Acts and other things. So when we're looking, and if you look at MSME, it is a growth engine, which we say, but this dwarf MSME are more than 53% of India's MSME, and which are the constraining factor. So even though if we scale our model for hiring, the question is, will they hire more than 100? So if you're looking at changes, we have to make a substantial change in labor laws, and it is a huge political problem, irrespective of who comes at the center. So in that case, if you are looking at changing the MSME sector, this is a problem. If you're growing and enlarging it to a large sector, the problem comes is that they are very much skill biased. If they look for skilled people, And this is good where hiring is doing. This is what, yeah, Xtep is doing. It's a good job, good thing. But the problem which is creating is that the premium of the skill in the labor market grows up. That means that they have higher wages in the year. Now, if we look at the growth of education in India, from 2000 onwards, there has been huge growth of the higher education. So if you looked at the gross enrollment rate in 1998-99, in 2000, it was around 11%. In recent 21-22, at the age of 18 to 23, this gross enrollment of the higher education has gone to around 24%. Mind it, in this year, the population has been growing up. So this growth of 24% is more than 100% jump. So these education people are coming up and it is distributed throughout India. But the job scenario is only restricted to the Tier 1 cities or hardly in the Tier 2 cities, so it goes up. So what is happening that people from every part of India are getting attracted here with the expectation of higher wages. And these wages are only given to the skilled buyers, but people who are getting that education, they do not understand that difference. So there is a huge migration in the urban sector. When they're migrating, they do not get jobs. If they do not get the jobs, what is happening is that the job, if you look at the labor market, there are two band of wages. The higher educated skill, they are getting a very high wage, and who is migrating in, their wages are going down because they are not getting job, they are going into casualization of workers, and a problem has come up with, again, within the labor laws is that the informal sector has grown. That means that you have a huge people who have come in which are highly educated but have deficient in basic skills, and the reason is a lot because of the education being in the concurrent list. There is no uniformization of education in a given domain across India. For example, if you think of my domain, economics, there are only, in my time, there was only one or two states giving a good economics graduate. Not because they are good, only because the syllabus was better there. In 10 years, when the syllabus developed in few other states, you have economists from other parts of the country also coming up. And I think this is true in other field also. Because of this non-uniformity of education across the country, the skills are not homogeneous. Some are getting very high skilled, they are getting highly skilled, the employment prices are going up, wages are going up for them, but the other people who are educated but do not have the skill, they are driving down the wage. And that has resulted in a huge inequality in the society. Now the question that we have to answer is the skilling is the only way out, or is the skilling is the solution? The question is where is the problem is lying? If the problem is lying in the skilling part or because of the non-uniformity of the education that is created across the country, that is a problem. If the non-uniformity is a problem, then we should tackle it at the head first, not going to the skilling portion. Question is why there is no uniformity of syllabus of a single domain across the country. Okay, new education policy has taken a step, but what about the higher education, which is actually a conduit between the education sector and the industry? That is where most people has to come and devise a policy. But all this, what I'm saying, they are very politically sensitive issues. When we come, there will be language problem coming up, there will be problems of who has a domain where to function, and we have seen this problem coming up. But we have to think politically, and as an academic, we can just say that identify where the problems are. Now it is up to other people to think about it.
If I can get you in, Mr. Desai, you're from the formal side of the industry. You've led an industry body that is essentially at the top of the pyramid. If you look at how hiring, how the companies themselves are doing. What is your sense of how this sort of an experiment uh, uh, is working, and how should it be working from the industry's point of view? Both you and your those who are the lower tiered, companies that supply to you. How do you see this panning out?
Thanks for inviting me here. It is always great to be with you. I always say, he's a chemical engineer and does a lot of IT work. So I asked him, why did you get into IT? But that's a separate discussion. See, MSMEs, if that is the subject that you want me to address, there's 6 crore or 8 crore MSMEs, 25 crore jobs. They are creating 29% of GDP, and so number is large. But if you go behind them, and actually I was MSME 35, 40 years ago, but I was lucky to come to IIT and hire 7 people. I don't think, and they all joined us because we were in IT. But the point I'm saying is, a typical MSME doesn't have that luxury. In fact, even large companies can't employ IIT Bombay graduate these days. But that apart, if I'm an MSME, see, my problems are about first getting business. Okay, I have to generate business, which means I have to do marketing, sales. Second, if I have a business, I need a credit. I get a lot of difficulty in getting working capital. If I get working capital, I have to worry about all the other regulations that government puts and make my life difficult by, doing ease of business is not very easy. When I have all this, actually, if you look back, the problem is actually the talent. If I had good talent, I would have taken care of business because I would have found marketing and sales strategy and started doing it. I would have some finance fellow who would have taken care and talked to banks. But all falls on the head of that poor fellow entrepreneur who he or she has to work hard to make it happen because he or she can't attract the last talent to do exactly. So actual problem is talent, but it is manifested in credit and revenue and so on and so forth. So and that gets the last priority in when I'm running an MSME. If I talk to MSMEs, how much weightage they give it to hiring a best talent? Very little, because these other 3 problems are his real problems. So the point I'm making is anything that is going to make his or her life easier to hire would definitely solve a big, big problem for MSMEs, if you ask me from their perspective. They first, as I said, have little time for hiring, and on top of it, they don't know where to hire from because no college entertains them, or colleges may not even have a hiring facility or placement cell. On top of it, they don't know whether they will join us because their brand image is very low of MSMEs. They have to self-promote themselves. They will all first go to, all of us before joining them. On top of it, they don't even know whether the person is right for them through all the skills match and so on and so forth. So there's a huge problem sitting there, if you ask me. This 25 crore employment, I'm sure there is at least 3-4 crores people who are through this graduate or more than that. I'm just making a guess. The kind of jobs that are lying vacant, and we are complaining about unemployment on the other hand. Look at it from demand side. The supply side. 20 to 25% of the youth in 25 to 30 age are unemployed today. Total unemployment may be 5%. But if you go at age-wise, it is very high. Why is that? Because on one hand, I have a problem of getting people as MSME. On the other hand, I don't know where to find jobs if I am a graduate. So anything or any exchange mechanism, if I call it at a higher level, the gap is of information. And if anything that can solve the problem of information gap is a great idea. So UPI has solved that problem for money. ONDC is solving that problem for the goods. So I think I'm greatly enthused when I see that jobs problem is getting solved, hopefully, uh, through this kind of portal. And I'm sure with his ambition, I have seen him working on the spoken tutorials from where it was and where it is now. If I look at that, his passion and commitment, I'm sure this is some revolution is in making, because that's a problem that needs to be solved. So thanks for taking it up, and it's really a problem, and I think its impact is going to be very high, as I said, if it can solve MSME's problems of today.
Thanks. Professor Gannan, spoken tutorials, how does that also fit in with the broader objective that we're talking about, having verifiable credentials for students I mean, that seems to be one of the big problems, as Professor Shaw said, that, the skilling gap is something that we talk about, but it's essentially the lack of uniformity in education that might be the key to it. How does spoken tutorial then come in to perhaps address this specific issue of verifiable credentials?
No. So verifiable credentials have to be done not only through spoken tutorial. Spoken tutorial is just a platform that gives some IT training. It encourages people that they are capable of doing. They do that and so on. But over and above that, we need to collect this information from the colleges, from the for example, is the student, I always say that a company recruits somebody, this guy has joined, only after 3-4 months they find out this guy is capable of doing nothing, cannot do anything. So it's a serious problem. And just like students, some other graduates end up in Cambodia, for example. They thought that they were going to Canada for a job, but they were, ended up somewhere. So this verification has to be done also separately. That we are working with 1,000 colleges, and the colleges know who genuine students are, graduates are, right? And we are trying to say, in fact, I believe that if we address this problem, it's like to digress, the companies will go and get many more projects, because if they can address this talent problem. Okay, right now that guarantee is not there. Who are they recruiting? Is it a bona fide graduate? Did they actually go to the college? Did he actually score whatever 80% or whatever, or is that person just making it up? So as far as spoken tutorial is concerned, we know what tests they have taken, what are the courses they have passed, what marks they have scored. That may also have some bearing. Somebody might say that I want a chemistry graduate who knows a little bit of Python. So fine, we can find that. Okay. Similarly for other fields also, because if you have a large number, for example, we have polytechnic graduates, diploma holders, they need jobs. Okay, then it may be mechanical engineer, mechanical diploma holder, and with some experience of working with, let's say, FreeCAD. FreeCAD is an AutoCAD equivalent open source software. Through that, they can design some stuff like that, which may be good enough for them. Okay, so that is something that spoken tutorial can provide, and they can provide confident people. But other things, we need to have other mechanisms to collect that information.
So, Mr. Gupta, again, if we can go back to maybe the pilot and what, how you see that having sort of panned out, and, how to scale it up. as Professor Kannan said, that it was a small pool, and so there might be limitations in terms of how we are perhaps seeing it. But when we scale it up on a pan-India basis, for instance, how do you see that? How do you see that working? So that is one. And secondly, we have educationists here. What really for you would be the expectation from colleges, other educational institutions for this kind of a thing to work?
That's a lot I have to pack in terms of answering this question. But see, at a very basic level, what are we talking here? We are saying that every student who's studying, let's say in some college, they should be able to broadcast what they want as a signal, as a digital signal. That information should be trusted, right? Now, actually, it's not so difficult for colleges to do that, right? Because they know the student. They know the skills of the student. So helping the student emit a digital signal, which is also verifiable with credentials, which are like, the student has, graduated in so and so college from so and so stream, has these kind of skills. Top of it, add some of the skills that may have gained through things like spoken tutorial, etc. That's actually not that difficult, right? And actually, hence, if colleges across India, plus also some of the skilling associations across India, like we are already working with Karnataka Skilling Association, UP Skilling Association, and so on and so forth. Likewise, they can also be many skillers like spoken tutorial. So those who are connected to students, if they can help the students emit that signal which can be trusted, that's at least going to take care of one part of the equation. And that easily can happen, with everyone coming around something like this. And in this context, what can make it easy? For that basic digital infra which is needed for that we are putting together in this context. So it's not like everyone has to build technology from scratch. They can leverage that to ensure that this gets emitted. The other side of the equation, which is where the job providers are, in fact, that is where, again, if you look at it, many colleges have placement cells. Not every college has it, but quite a few of them have it. In fact, even during the pilots and what we have done, what came out was these placement cells, or the people who are the placement officers, or even the principals of those colleges, they're able to suggest some of the employers that they know of, but they were never able to visit the campus at that particular point of time when the job fair was happening, and so on and so forth. But telling a MSME next door that, look, here is a simple digital tool that you can use, a bot, you can talk to it in your local language, it will create a job posting that can emit a signal, which can then be caught by anybody who's in the vicinity of that area, so that they can apply to that job opening, can actually make that thing easier. So that's another one option. For example, to look at whichever college has some placement officer, principal who's connected to a few companies, those companies being told to use that tool to emit that signal. Second is, of course, MSME associations. Then if you look at also even some of the job aggregators in the country, right? Some of the hiring and the placement consultants in the country. If it were to become easy for them to emit this signal, again using some basic core minimal digital public infra, that can really make this job easy. So I think the core aspect here is that how can everyone emit a signal? Now that may also need some people to develop some solutions on top of it to make it easy. In fact, we have recently started talking about this idea of signal as a service, as the new SaaS play in this context, right? Of course, it is called software as a service. That's a conventional SaaS play. But how about signal as a service being offered as an easy plug-and-play solution to anybody that can be offered to a college, that can be offered to a MSME, so that they can emit trusted signals in this context. So I think that, and we see a movement building up in this direction already. One is a pilot we are doing with spoken tutorial. Likewise, many other pilots that are happening. Many other startups as well as early stage investors who are actually showing interest in participating in something like this, because everyone realizes that the job problem is a problem that has to be solved for in India, is a movement that has begun. So I think if I were to compare it, think of it this way, that UPI as an idea was something which started in 2015. 2016 it started rolling, and then of course it is where it is today. Right now, almost 70% of the country uses UPI today. For something like this idea was conceived last year. It has had a almost close to an year kind of a journey. So it's like the early days of UPI. But the shape that it can take is with the ecosystem participating in this, colleges themselves playing their role in this context, many small software companies playing the role of providing signal as a service kind of a thing, and many other associations coming around, the MSME association, government bodies, other private companies participating in this, and turning around this as an ecosystem to make it bigger, because it helps them also in the process of making employment fluid like UPI is today.
Professor Shaw, the one aspect that you briefly sort of touched upon, scale in MSMEs. Again, I'm just zooming out a little bit, but one, obviously there is a policy impetus to keep units smaller, because a lot of benefits are sort of available to them if they show that they're small in size. And just on the scale aspect, this is a number that Professor Pranab Sen, who was our first chief statistician, India's first chief statistician, he'd given that according to the annual survey of industries, there were some 80 million companies. Add to that some 45 million farm, each of which can be sort of a unit. And we're talking of about 125 million units. We have 250 million households or families. So effectively we're talking of 1 unit per household. That's the kind of scale that we're talking about. For some reason, the scaling up is not happening. How much of it is because of policy? How much of it is because of the problem that they're now trying to address? The whole manpower, connecting manpower to the companies that are units that they need them.
In terms of number, it is huge. Let me put the perspective. 53% of the MSMEs are dwarf, which account for only 10% of the employment. That means that they're not deliberately employing. Okay, the thing is that they should go. They should not be there in the... What we should be focusing about the rest of 47% who are actually genuinely employing. And that is where this scalability is going to come into the picture of hiring, XStep and others are going to do wonders. But the thing what you are looking at is signals of the employability of the people. And we know that every signals are noise. There are a huge amount of noise. And the question which Mr. Gupta is saying is also about verifiability. But there are simple models that can be included, which has not been done. For example, for any firm, what type of people they want? They usually want a very intelligent people. They do not. Because very intelligent people creates problem. They are not satisfied with your job. Okay, they do not want very stupid also. The medium thing which you are always looking into. But how are you verifying? Why do you need another institution to verify it? A simple solution is that a person who can verify that student or the teacher themselves. You have the technology, you have the bot, we have the system of letter of recommendation, but which is very difficult to write. It takes a huge time to write it. But given the new tools of technology we have with AI and other thing, a simple communication between the employer and the teacher of the potential candidate can be easily verifiable. Who can verify just? But this policy has to be implemented. Still now, we in India, we do not find the letter of recommendation are well used in the top hiring also. This is strange. In the top hiring also, letter of recommendations are not used properly. So we need to have a device of system where the verification has to be done at the costless way but from the person who can verify. And it is the family members and the teachers, and there has to be policy to do this. Then the noise will go down. And in that case, that 47% of the MSME will be highly beneficial for them. Because for them, that will be cost less interaction to get a verifiable candidate. So we need a policy to do it, an idea to do it. So that can do great.
Probably ask one last question, then open it up for questions to you, Mr. Gupta. How important is it to ensure the scalability of the model? For instance, UPI, you mentioned, it helped because there were some exogenous shocks. Demonetization was one, COVID was another. ONDC has struggled to take off. So what is it that you think is needed in the model itself, or the way we evolve the model, that it should be scalable? And maybe the test of it, like in case of UPI, the fact that even your street vendor uses it is a sign that it's working. What is the test that you would perhaps put the model to?
That's a great question. So let me put it this way. Actually, let me recount a small story which kind of brings this out. And my colleague Adarsh only discovered it on the ground when he was there in Hubli, which is a town in Karnataka. So in Hubli, there was this MSME, I won't name him, but he is a electric vehicle component manufacturer running fairly decent size operations. And this entity was looking for a number of electricians to hire. College kids fresh out of college who are electricians, like typically what you get from an ITI or that kind of an institute. And really searching for it hard because the order volume had gone up. Mr. Desai spoke about the fact that when I even crack the business problem, talent still remains the problem, right? So how do I get the talent to actually immediately take care of this demand that has come? Now, the interesting bit is there was a college just 800 meters away which could have taken care of this demand that this MSME had. But let me ask the question, why could that college not, or rather that MSME was not able to find the college? Anybody wants to take a guess? Anybody? 800 meters away is a college that could have fulfilled the demand that the MSME had, but the MSME just 800 meters away, could not hire. Why? Anybody?
No medium is there, those who can interact with those people, they can get
Yeah. So actually, the core was visibility, in that context. And in fact, the interesting thing was that this guy used to, the office was here, the plant and the thing. Then he had to take the highway. To the right of the highway was this college, and to the left of the highway was his home. So this guy said, frequently I go left, I don't make the right turn. And even if I've made the right turn, I thought it's some government building. Didn't realize that, there's actually a ITI over there, which is training students who are electricians, and, I could hire from there. And vice versa. The ITI students had no visibility to, a job like this. So imagine this, in fact, like on Google Maps, we can easily find destinations, right? But this ITI guy could not see these guys on Google Map, and these kids in that college could not see this MSME on Google Maps saying, I have these jobs, kind of a thing, right? So visibility is the core problem. Now, so if we can solve the visibility, the discovery problem, right? And make it timely and trusted, and also do it in a way that it is inclusive, that the whole of India can do it, which means I can do it in my local language. I can do it through the mode that I find most convenient using, which doesn't just mean that, browsing on a smartphone. It might just mean I have a feature phone. I'll just talk to the feature phone. Can I talk to the feature? And like the example that you saw, the in the video that played, that kid was getting tested on the skill through voice, right? And in local language. And now all of a sudden, that MSME could say that, oh, this is the kind of a candidate that I want in this context, right? So, so I would say if these things are solved for in the right way, the discovery aspect, the trust aspect, the aspect of ensuring that it can happen in the local language in multimodal fashion, and all of this can be exchanged not with everything sitting on one platform or one portal, but anybody anywhere in the country is able to broadcast and find, then that is what it will give better chances of success. And for that, I think the way we need to think about it is not to try to build one large portal, one large platform. I mean, all of those things are great, but here we are talking about connecting many so that they can discover and find each other with the broadcast in this fashion.
Questions from the audience?
Number one, I talked about tool Anuvadini translation tool into 22 languages in the morning. We are also developing an app called as Samvadini, which is going to be equivalent or much better than WhatsApp in many ways. Is going to be launched. It is also already there in Google Store, but iOS system we have still to work. So that is one area. And the second one, which myself, Gaurav, worked on with a different name has come, is the APAR ID, which most of the institutions in education are knowing. APAR itself is Automated Permanent Academic Account Registry, which has a connection with Academic Bank of Credits. And I often say that this is where what Gaurav was saying about trust, about confidentiality, also confidence, and in turn, authenticity of the records, which is happening through the Academic Bank of Credits, where the source from where the students actually get the certification, they only are able to put those certificates into the domain. It is not individual who will be able to do some PDF, a certificate and then morph it and do something else and then create his own profile and put it. It is not allowed. It is only the universities, the colleges who are authorized to issue the certificates only can launch the certificates into the portal. Therefore, it is trustworthy, it is accessible, it is verifiable, and it is having all variety of things which you talked about. It is already existing. And today I just checked the latest data. 31 crore students have joined already. It means the entire population of the country is joined. The only problem is authenticated data is of 21 crore because we are asking for Aadhaar backends, for making sure that that identity is unique. And for uniqueness, we are using Aadhaar. We wanted no separate, APAR ID. But unfortunately, our courts have never understood the importance of the Aadhaar which has been created. And therefore, we had to bandwagon and create another one called APAR. But backend, we asked for the consent of the candidate, because with consent, court cannot say anything. With the consent we are taking in, 21 crore students have given consent to be part of this. Those APAR IDs are validated. Remaining 10 crore are yet to be done. We want to launch a movement in order to onboard all of them. And if whatever portal is developed, if you ask APAR ID as mandatory, although that mandatory word is difficult to understand, Hindi में ये जबरदस्ती करना ही चाहिए ऐसे करेंगे तो मेरे ख्याल से सारे स्टूडेंट को जो कनेक्ट करने के लिए, विजिबिलिटी होने के लिए, डिस्कवरी करने के लिए ये बहुत आसान हो जाएगा. And everything is authentic. So we are on the way. We are very close to that. That's what I wanted to convey.
So I think with that we'll yeah.
I'm Dr. Sachin Labde from University of Mumbai. I'm actually a faculty in the Department of English, but presently also working as the Honorary Director, Career Training and Placement Cell. I have a comment and a question and I've written down so I keep myself on a track. So while the discussion that we had rightly highlights that there's a information gap between job opportunities and employable candidates, I believe it is equally important to also recognize that this is a multi-dimensional issue. Many students, especially those trained in specific disciplines, are socialized to pursue careers within the narrowly defined domains. And what happens as a result, and this is from my personal experience because we constantly receive a lot of job openings from different organizations for the university students, and we do not really get response from the students. And I find, this as a result that, they may overlook these opportunities that fall outside these boundaries. And moreover, factors such as the nature of job, remuneration, or the geographic location, and job security can be responsible for the choices that the students make. We need to see the shelf life of the job opportunity. Some opportunities are very limited. They exist only for a short period. And probably candidates are not willing to take risk of, doing, or taking career or making career in something which doesn't really promise a long life. So that could be one thing that needs to be equally addressed to understand the dynamics. I mean, I am thankful to Professor Shaw that, he talked about this gap, and we need to address, the different dimensions. So I'll come to my question that in light of these complexities, how can academia, industry, and policymakers work together to build more flexible and interdisciplinary career pathways that not only make students more adaptable, but also help employers and particularly MSMEs find talent that is both relevant and sustainable? So that's my question. Thank you very much.
Would you want to take it?
Yeah.
Or Professor Shaw?
I'll give part answer. Even in this, thanks for the comments. Even in this pilot, there was a student who wanted a job within 2 bus stops, I believe. Okay? When it was not there, she didn't take it. Okay? So, and of course, such a job was found. I believe that this is what I mentioned as scale. If you have more number of jobs, it's also like, I'm acutely aware of it. When I was in charge of distance education, we were transmitting IIT Bombay's courses. We were transmitting only a few. But the people wanted many courses and we were not supplying, so they would not come. Whereas if we were in a position to transmit many more courses, then many more people will come because their needs are met. Similarly, here what will happen is when a lot of jobs are available, not in the pilot, pilot means only a few jobs, few students. Many more jobs are available. Maybe there is some other student, for example, this girl was offered some other job which was 2 bus stops away, more than 2 bus stops away. So she could not take it. But maybe there was somebody else who did not mind that job, would have taken that job. So in a way, when you don't have scale, some jobs will go a begging and some students are not going to get jobs. So scale is one solution. I'll stop here. Maybe there is.
Would you want to add to that?
I will put one point out here is that actually this is good that the student has not taken the job. That implies that they are exercising their choice. That is good. But the problem lies if you are looking at a dynamic setting. How many jobs they are going to reject? After rejecting few jobs, they are going to take up job which actually they have rejected before. That means that in economics, we are saying that the reservation wage on which they are getting employed is coming down. But the question is why it is coming down. And to a large extent, it is because of excess supply of educated workers in India, which results in a large informal sector in the labor market. These informal sector are coming up because they are outside the ambit of the national labor legislation. How to address it? One is we have no solution. One can be that we can make formalization a big amount of mandatory, but whenever you are making the formula as mandatory, unemployment will start rising because people will not give jobs to it. Yeah. So this is not an easy solution, as you have said, that this is a multi-dimensional problem, and we have to have and one single solution cannot come up. But in this respect, what is important is that if the person who is leaving the job is in that time he can upgrade his skill, in future what you are going to find that the reservation wage, rather than coming down, it is going to go up. And for that we need lot of other portals coming up where this skilling part is important, verifiable and certifiable. So that has to be done. And this is where the new age entrepreneurs should come up, has to come up with new ideas how we generate more skilling part among the students. That way. This is my point. Yeah.
Thank you. One more question, please. If
Yeah, my name is Dr. Neeraj Agarwal. I am from Patna, Siemens Group of Institutions. And recently, when we were conducting the entrance interviews and all, so the first year student, those who came for the UG programs, so I asked that whether they have any experience of coding or not. So many of them said, sir, I don't know coding, but I have done vibe coding. So this vibe coding thing is like, my question is to Mr. Desai, because he is representing the IT industry. And we talked about software as a service, and now agentic AI as a service, and this co-pilot thing happening. And I'm seeing that there is a lack of interest amongst the student that why to learn this entire spectrum of coding when they can get the code in such an easy manner through vibe coding and through all these kind of numerous platforms like Cursor and so many ChatGPT, and there are many others. So, and what is the reaction of the IT sector are they taking it as a opportunity wherein they are going to reduce the cost for because human resource is a major component of the cost for the IT sector? And what is your response? And where do you, in the long run, it can be very detrimental for the service sector in the IT sector? And at the same time, another question which is I would like to Mr. Gupta to answer, like this incidence of this tech company which fails to hire the one candidate after 450 interviews. It was a very popular case that 12,000 people have applied, and then they, after conducting 450 interviews, they were not even able to hire one, saying that most of them have copy-pasted from AI. So what would be the industry's response, specifically in terms of this hiring segment? And one last question, though Professor Dr. Sahas Buddha is not on the panel, but he mentioned about the Anuvadini thing. And that's a superb, I should first of all compliment the entire team of Anuvadini, and the team of AICT and Dr. Buddhachand Chandrasekhar also. And we saw the demonstration, but it's 600 rupees per page cost for translation is exorbitant for the academicians. So what steps the team Anuvadini is taking so that, because we are also associated with the Bharatiya Bhasha Samiti, and for Bihar, I'm very keen, and Professor Mudgalyar is also of the same view that vernacular languages and Hindi language, we should have tech-oriented content. So creating books and creating study materials in Hindi and in other 22 languages, that's in fact, as per the NEP also, that is a very prominent project. And Anuvadini can play a great role in that. But provided this 600 rupees per page cost, if it is handled or taken care of, then a lot of academicians will work in that regard. That's my 3 questions.
Because whatever is translated needs to be validated, 2 levels of validation. We have got 105 employees whose salary is being paid by us, not from the government. This is a Section 8 not-for-profit company established, so we have to earn money. Without that, we will not be able to pay 6 crore rupees monthly salary of these 100 plus employees whom we have recruited. So that is why there is a cost involved. We have been appealing to the government that you give 100 crore per annum, we will make everything free for everyone.
So I think this question was not appropriate for this meeting because it was, you may have objection why I'm answering IT industry question. But so I'll be very brief, otherwise I'll have to be very long answer to what you are asking. IT industry is working on obviously riding on this AI wave, doing 3 things. A, the question that you asked, improving the productivity. Okay. Number 2, finding new applications in our existing customer base which are not yet solved. Like what we are doing today in Mastech was solving some medical patient problem in US, which we would not have solved without AI. And third is finding something totally new products around AI. So the impact of AI on IT industry is multifold. It is, of course, improving the productivity, and all of us are working hard to make it happen, and that also will happen. Now, your question is, will that end up into nobody learning programming and they will all generate code by itself? Is a question difficult to answer, but the issue is, even today, the code generated is not 100% perfect. Let us realize it. The code has to be tested, checked first. And sometimes checking takes sometimes as much time as coding, by the way. And that is a problem, and that they can't check without understanding the language. So they have to understand the language before generating the code. So let us realize that. So I don't see that it is going to go away. That's one. Number two is coding is a particular fraction of total effort that IT industry, services industry spends when we deliver some solution to customers. So it's one of the steps. There is something called identification of problem, understanding the system, architecture. I can get into all the details. I don't want to give knowledge to people here. But the point I'm making is coding is a part, and of course an important part, and takes large time. But there is much more to be done beyond coding, and we need IT professionals for that, and AI is not solving those problems, at least till now. So I hope that I answered your question.
Okay, I'll come to mine. So see, I think there is a lot of skepticism about, what that company did, by the way, right? In terms of whether they were really looking to hire people, or were they really doing it for the sake of doing some assessment and a survey and developing their own understanding to build some framework or a model that they want to do for themselves. So I think won't be right to comment on, that where the sources are not verified, there is a lot of skepticism around it and so on and so forth. But if I were to boil it down to the fact that, out of 12,000 people who make an application, 450, finally get shortlisted, get interviewed, nobody gets hired. See, in a very practical world, that won't typically be the scenario, right? And it's also a very, very, I would say a white collar kind of a thing, which happens where probably the job is aspirational. Almost everybody wants to apply for it. But if there is only one role, they are only going to hire one, right? So in such a case, the real problem to solve is to bring in those jobs which are beyond that one, which means many employers around them who may be willing, looking for similar talent and those kind of people, and for those jobs to become visible so that the candidates have more opportunities and the employers have more opportunities to pick from a wider pool of candidates. Thank you.
One last question, ma'am.
Hearty congratulations, Professor Kannan sir, for having launched this spoken tutorial. It's amazing, and our college is doing excellent in that. More than 1,500 students, Jai Hind College, Autonomous College. So we are doing good, and I'm really very happy and congratulate you on this initiative which you have taken for EkStep to be collaborated. I see a huge potential of it, sir, because information gap is really one of the big problems. But on the other side, I would also like to highlight 2-3 problems which we face when we are doing internships and placements. One is the student perception. The student perceptions matter a lot. Whether it is a job designation which looks very glorified, they are very happily going on the net and decoding about what kind of job it is, what is the nature of the job. And in few days, they have the conversation that, oh, this is it, but actually ye karwayenge wahan pe. So aap pehle se, I think if the jobs can be validated, there should be credibility of jobs also, verification of the jobs. Secondly, the verifiability of the students' records. Professor Sahasrabuddhe sir said APAR is a good indicator, but also the digital signal which you were talking about. I think the student should get a chance to give a short video. That is very important because, as I think one of the questions also highlighted, not necessarily from the same program the student wants to choose in that narrow sector. So often it has been found that people who are engineers don't want to do engineering job, and those who are from commerce, they are switching over to some other roles. From arts, they want to go into the tech, but they could not get a chance to get into the tech. And now we have sustainability and green jobs as well. So I think there's a huge potential to also know about what the students want. Somehow I think one platform or a chat where students can also relay to you what they are looking for could be a good way to get the feedback of what kind of jobs you should put on that. Because that is where it's a very dynamic space. And I'm not seeing the potential only limited to even the entrants. Because those who are already in the jobs, if they want to upscale, this platform can also be used for that. So I think it also can go into the second layer about that. We have experts in the country, and institutions want to hire the experts and we don't get the information. So how can that also be leveraged? So a 3-layer kind of a thing where you have the entrance, you have the middle level and the higher level. I think that could also be expanded, is my suggestion, Professor Kannan, sir. Thank you. I'm Archana from Jai Hind College. Thank you.
Thanks. That's food for thought for Mr. Gupta. Yeah. Briefly, and then we'll wrap up.
I'll just, give a response to that. So thank you, actually. And it's great that you pointed this out, because when we're talking about a digital signal, that signal is about what I want. Right? That is what we are referring to as the digital signal, as the first signal on either side of the equation. Right? That the employer putting out a signal saying, this is what I want, and the candidate putting out the signal saying, this is what I want. So that the matchmaking can happen in the context of the signal. Then comes the aspect of saying, now what do you trust in terms of who is the candidate or who is the job provider, what do they have, is that correct, and so on and so forth. But you hit the nail on the head by saying, can I broadcast what I want? That is precisely what the digital signal is about. Thank you.
Right. Great. Thanks. Professor, you wanted to say something?
Anuvadini app, which is equivalent to WhatsApp, I said, it is more interesting because each one of you, when you download, it asks for your language. Suppose you say your language is Marathi. Another one says Tamil. You send a message in Marathi, that person will receive in Tamil. No other software has done it.
Thank you very much, sir. And thank you very much to the panelists and Anil Sasi for such an intriguing and thought-provoking conversation. I mean, it was truly a world of possibilities are really in front of us, and it's about, I'm very excited to see how all of these are going to shape up in very interesting times in the future. Thank you very much.